What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Box. My name is Harry Hicks, and I am joined, as always, by Thomas McKeon and Max Botcher. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Harry.
Thank you.
We're in the
void.
void.
A little bit of a different episode this week. We were all at home. Max was feeling a little bit under the weather, but Max, I hope you're doing well from afar.
I know. I want to keep everyone healthy and safe. But I did test it, so no worries.
That's good. Before we jump into things today, I just wanted to give a little update to everyone on where Box to Box is at and what we're doing these days. So we have our podcast here. We'll keep coming out with that every single week. And we release those podcast episodes on Fridays on Spotify and YouTube. Now, along with our podcast, which is what we started out with, we're also producing a lot of other content these days. We have Max making some TikToks for us. Tommy and I usually handle the Instagram and put out some stuff on there. And then that all leaks into the Twitter. So whatever platform you're on, please check us out because we have a lot of good stuff coming out, a lot of stuff that we think is pretty cool, and hope you do as well. So please check out these different options and different channels, and keep up the support because we are very, very, very appreciative for all of that. With that being said, let's get into today's episode.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do
all
it.
right, well, what do you guys want to talk about? We can start off with Champions League, I guess, was an ample place to start. I think that we should just start off with the kicker. Man City versus Real Madrid yesterday. Man City scoring 4, Real Madrid scoring 3. Any first impressions?
What a game. Honestly, City should have... This could have been like 7-3. 6-7-3, honestly.
It should have been like
they missed so many
7-0.
chances. Yeah, I mean, you had the penalty and then a no-look finish from Benzema, which was ridiculous. But City just missed so many chances in the first half. Like the Foden one, amazing pass from De Bruyne.
Mahrez had a couple too.
Yeah, Mahrez, where he should have honestly passed over. But yeah, City should have been a little more clinical, I felt like, and they kind of let Madrid get back into the game in the second half, and now it's going to be an interesting return game in Madrid. So City and knockout games, I feel like, are crazy. So
Yeah, kind of up there. But I was saying, I feel like it should have been almost 0 because yes, Madrid had their chances, but mostly they didn't have chances. There wasn't that many quality chances. I think that Vinicius chance was really the best one, but also he ran 50 yards to make that goal happen. So should have been knocked down by City, and I think they'll come away pretty disappointed from this result. First off, that they didn't score more, but also that they let 3 goals past them. Yes, the penalty can happen, but Benzema's first goal was just possible because he's Benzema, and the form he's in. Even with Zinchenko defending seemingly very well, Benzema's still able to get it past Ederson. And then, like I said, that Vinicius goal was a little weird. I felt like someone should have kind of came across to cover it. For those of you who didn't watch, Vinicius basically picked up the ball at the halfway point on a breakaway and was able to run all the way into the 6-yard box and take a shot, which seems like either Ederson should have come out a little bit more, or I think it was Laporte. I guess it was John Stones probably, should have come across. So it was a little bit odd. I think Pep will be pretty frustrated that was able to happen.
Yes, yeah. I think Real Madrid came out and they had the game plan of creating chaos. And while City might be upset of themselves for not scoring more, they also put away some insane chances, like that Bernardo Silva finish, top ends near post. That was a pretty insane finish. Also, they got pretty lucky with that Jesus goal where Alaba kind of just muffed the clearance, and Alaba came off a few minutes later with an injury. So I think that was a little lucky on City's part. So while you may look at it and see they should have been 7-0 up, they very much well could have been 2-2 or 3-2 loss in that game. I think Benzema, there's like how Real plays nowadays, they are banking on Benzema and Vinicius to score some crazy goals because they didn't look that great. I've seen teams play Manchester City a lot better. We saw Liverpool play much better a few weeks ago. But in terms of the players they have on the pitch and the kind of personalities they have, this is the way to go. And it's fun. It's honestly just like a good time to watch them try to create some chaos and score some goals from like half chances basically every single time.
Yeah, I agree with that 110%. I'm interested to see, who do you guys think has the maybe momentum going into the second leg next week?
Madrid, I think. I think
Because
Madrid.
City played the better game, right?
City played the better
chances.
game, but I think City is more so disappointed that they didn't play better, and I think Madrid is happy to be one within one, and two, they're heading back to their home stadium with their fans. And I think what Madrid has shown over and over this whole Champions League season and past seasons is they're so comfortable from coming from behind. They're never going to give up. And I mean, like Benzema, there's just like so many fighters on that team. And I think that's something that since Vincent Kompany has left Manchester City, City really hasn't had that type of vocal leader. The only other person I can really say is Fernandinho, and he's not really a starter. I mean, their captain is De Bruyne, and while he's an incredible player, I don't think he really comes close to those types of vocal leaders that you need on a team. And I think that's honestly why they struggle in some of these big games is, when things aren't going their way, or if they're kind of in a lull. I mean, like even in the second half, right off of halftime, they weren't nearly as successful or as strong as they were in the first half. And I think they're going to struggle in this away game against Madrid too. And I think Madrid know that. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that is, this is just like an interesting maybe side point, but their team captain is Fernandinho, but since he never plays, the on-the-field captain is usually De Bruyne. So that is just kind of an interesting thing that happens when you still have a player that's still so impactful in Fernandinho, that he still is the captain, but because he's not good enough these days, because he is a little bit older, that he can't have that impact on the pitch. So that was just kind of a little interesting thing that I haven't really thought about, just when a captain gets a bit older, how that voice can fade a little bit. But Max, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think not only do Madrid feel lucky to be in the position that they're in, and they feel inspired by their previous games this season in the Champions League, but also Manchester City feel disappointed. I would imagine they were hoping to come away from that the way they were playing, like we said, up by quite a couple goals, or quite a few goals, and now they're only up by one. And so I think that disappointment can be a little daunting, especially when they look back on what Real Madrid has done this season. And Real Madrid, honestly, have really impressed me. And they've gone, basically this whole Champions League run, I've looked at every matchup and been like, okay, I don't really know if they can get through. I don't know how good of a team they are. And they just keep making it happen. And I really think that is credit to Karim Benzema. And I think City will definitely kind of feel Benzema over their shoulder and kind of breathing down their neck, ready to take the win and move on to the next stage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how City's gonna line up next game. Are they gonna try to score goals, or are they gonna try to preserve a 1-0 lead over Madrid? I think that's gonna be interesting.
I don't think that's in City's repertoire. I honestly think City have this. I think the amount of heroic actions it took for Real Madrid to lose by one is going to be pretty hard to replicate, to beat Man City by one in order to force an overtime or an extra time. So I think it's a pretty much an impossible task unless Benzema goes absolute god mode. It's going to be tough.
One thing that I'm curious to see is if Casemiro starts next game, because I do think having him in the midfield would have totally changed the game, because they didn't really have a defensive midfielder, basically. I mean, I think Toni Kroos was playing as that deeper role, and he just doesn't have the defensive ability or the defensive work rate that Benzema or that Casemiro does. So I think if he's fully fit, that totally changes the game, because not only is the midfield more controlled, but also the defenders kind of have that extra wall in front of them and can seemingly position themselves a little bit better. So I think him starting next game will be interesting. I also don't know the status of João Cancelo, or someone else was injured for City. I forget who.
I mean, no Kyle Walker, no João, but I thought it was because they were on yellows, but I'm not sure.
It could be.
But yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, one thing that when I watch Madrid play, they have nothing going on the right side. I mean, Valverde, within the first 25 minutes, when City got that first goal right away, and then they were getting a bunch of chances, you saw Valverde, who's really playing their right winger, like just drop in because they needed more defensive help. But all game, their offense is Vinny and Benzema, and just like the left side the whole time, tossing crosses, things like that. There's nothing going on the right side, which is unfortunate. You could put in a Bale, like right there, So.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, I think that right side is interesting. Obviously, I think they're hoping to fill Mbappe in that position. But also, it's kind of interesting just to see how reliant their midfield is on Modric and Kroos and Casemiro. Because when they're playing players like Valverde and Camavinga, it's very noticeable that those other players are missing. So, obviously, all three of those starters are getting a little bit older, and so they are going to have to start making the switch to Valverde and Camavinga starting more and more games. So it'll be interesting to see if they can. I mean, it'll be near impossible to come to the prowess of those three players, but it'll be interesting to see if they can be good enough just to keep this Madrid team going. Do you guys want to talk about the game today, Liverpool and Villarreal?
I watched it. It was honestly disappointing from Villarreal. I watched the highlights, and I watched some breakdowns of how they beat Bayern, where they weren't really afraid of actually passing. Well, a lot of teams that are kind of this far in the tournament and aren't supposed to be there are kind of like in that low block where they kind of just like defend and then pump it forward to attackers to run on. Villarreal don't do that. They really try to pass out of the back and break down a team's press. A team like Liverpool and Bayern, who do press a lot in the final third and then kind of go from there. I think their quality was off today, and Liverpool's press is just slightly that much better than Bayern's press, that it really threw them off the game. And the fact that Moreno was injured, I feel like they had less quality in their attack, and they really couldn't replicate what they did at Bayern in Liverpool tonight. So it was kind of disappointing.
I think part of it is the fact that Liverpool's defense is just that much better than Juventus and Bayern Munich. Like Liverpool, with Virgil van Dijk and both those outside wing backs, Konate was playing today and he played well, but mainly those other three, some of the best back four in the world. So I think compared to Bayern Munich's defense, which has kind of been very leaky this season, not very secure, I do think that plays a factor, because Villarreal don't have as many chances to kind of get a break on or to do any sort of hold-up play with Van Dijk back there. Similarly, for Juventus, Juventus doesn't have as strong of a back line these days. So I do think that plays a factor. But Tom, I do agree with you. They didn't kind of have the same tenacity that they've had against these other two teams. And once they let in that first goal, which was a bit unlucky, I think the goalkeeper should have done a little bit better there. But either way, it went in, and then Mane put that second goal away, which was a very nice goal. So I do think it is a big task they have ahead of them. That being said, we have seen them do kind of some incredible things this Champions League run. Obviously, just coming up against Juventus and Bayern Munich and getting through both those teams is a huge feat in and of itself. But I do think they're going to have to come up with something very special to get past Liverpool, who, one of the best teams in the world, no doubt. So, nice to watch the game.
I think, I watched it, and I think besides the scoreline, which is obviously what matters, I thought Villarreal played almost an identical game as they did against Bayern. I mean, Villarreal over 2 legs had 2 shots on goal and had 2 goals, right? Today they had 1 shot, no shots on goal, but it was similar to Liverpool dominating the game. Bayern dominated those 2 legs, just Bayern was not able to, score. And Liverpool was able to score 2 times today, and Villarreal just weren't able to counter like they were against Bayern. And I think a lot of that has to do with how Bayern, lined up. I think there was just a lot of craziness in the back where Davies was supposed to play, a lot of things like that. But, 2-0, the first goal was unfortunate, like you said, Harry. And I think it's going to be super difficult for Villarreal to come out of this. But, yeah, it was honestly kind of a boring game when I watched. So, and what I wanted to say was another great game from Thiago. I'm so, as a Bundesliga and as a Bayern fan, I'm so happy to see him get this recognition that honestly he deserves. And as a Bayern fan, I've seen him do this for the last 7 years at Bayern. And I feel like no one else really saw that, maybe outside of people watching the Bundesliga. And I remember early in this season, people were knocking Thiago, saying he's not able to play in Premier League because he struggled early on. And now everyone sees how great of a player he is. So I'm super, super happy he's playing that way.
I agree. Thiago had another great game. And I think, but I guess that being said, I don't know if Liverpool would be pleased with their game. I think 2 goals is good. Obviously, they weren't really worried about conceding, but I do think they would have liked to get a couple more goals. It obviously took them, all the way till something like the 55th minute or something like that, for a goalkeeper to make a mistake, for them to get their first goal. So I do think there's room for improvement from them, and room for critiques from their performance, because this Liverpool side should be winning this game, 3 or 4 true goals to 0. So, and that's not even to discredit Villarreal. It's just how good this Liverpool team has been playing. So I do think there's room for improvement from them, and that kind of shows that Villarreal were doing something right. They did frustrate this Liverpool team and made it hard for them to get chances and to also finish those chances.
Yeah, they played their possession game really helped kind of slow the game down in the first half. I think the first half was honestly pretty even, while Liverpool kind of had the chances. They kind of had half chances, and Villarreal really had some possession and slowed the game down, which is a good game plan when you're at Anfield, So I think it's going to be a struggle to actually come up with more than 2 goals against this Liverpool side. So honestly, it's going to be a all English final, in my opinion.
Yeah, is that the second year in a row, and then 3 and 4, I think.
Yeah.
Because 4 years ago, or I think was
Tottenham, Liverpool,
and then the year after that was Madrid, or no, it was Munich. But who did Munich beat?
PSG.
Okay. So lot of English football around these days. A lot of money going on over there, obviously. But let's move away from that. Max, I hear that something happened in this Inter game today. I didn't watch it, but
Yeah, 80th minute. So they were tied 1-1. It was Inter versus let's see.
Was it Bologna?
That is Bologna. Perisic throws a ball back on a throw-in to their goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper just whiffs at the ball, and it trickles in, and the Bologna player just taps it off a throw-in from the side. Throws it back to the keeper. Keeper, it's not Handanovic because he had, I think, a back injury or something. It's the backup. He tries to kick it with his left foot, and the ball's moving from left to right, whiffs it, and they lose 2-1.
Dude, that's bad.
And quite possibly loses them the league. Probably.
That's bad.
You know?
Because are they do anyone have the current standings up? Because they lost the game, Max, then?
Yeah, they lost 2-1, and they're 2 points behind Milan now. And they're all no games in hand.
Wow.
So
that's bad.
4 games
very
left.
Unfortunate.
4 games left.
Yeah, so AC Milan.
Go AC Milan.
Yeah. Ibrahimovic said he's not going to retire until he brings Milan a championship.
Oh, really?
Scudetto. Yeah.
Looking likely, I guess. Dude, that's bad. I feel like goalkeeping is such a challenging position because when you make a mistake, it's like all eyes on you. You know, if a striker misses a shot that they should be scoring, it's like, okay, there are other chances in the game or whatnot. But if you let in a goal like that, you lost the game. Which is, that's too bad that Handanovic had a injury because in a time like this, towards the end of the season, making a switch like that is, I'm sure, not in any coach's best interest or, what they want to be doing. At Kepler.
It shocks me. It shocks me how a lot of goalkeepers are just not that good with their feet. They're around the soccer ball, football all day. They practice all the time. I don't know why it's so difficult for a lot of them to make simple passes.
Pressure, It was just like, okay, they're getting nervous. They almost have too much time to think of it, especially on a throw-in. They can see it, dribbling back to them basically. It's almost like too much time to think.
Yeah. So that's
unfortunate. I'm not a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I feel like goalkeepers represent what a normal person would look like on the soccer field when they play with their feet. Honestly, because they're not picked, they're not in the league because of their ball skills. A lot of modern keepers are. But I feel like if you're gonna be pressed by a professional attacker, a Sadio Mane, you're gonna freak out a little bit. Like I would do the same things. I would just scuff kicks all over the place. So especially a backup keeper, I feel for the guy.
Yeah, that's what we saw. We talked about this last week with Zach Steffen, getting closed down by Sadio.
Yeah.
So that was tough.
So what about? Oh, I was just gonna say, what about Bayern Munich winning the 10th consecutive Bundesliga?
Dude.
Let's go!
Yeah, real close one there.
Yeah. Against our rivals, too. It always feels good to beat Dortmund to win the league. So I'm happy it ended like that.
No, that is fun. I see that. But also, 10 in a row, obviously an achievement, no doubt. That's huge for Bayern. But I don't know if that's good for the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
I think PSG almost just did the same thing. I don't know if they're at 10 or not, but...
no, because Lille won last year, right?
Oh, that is true, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Which is, shocking to them. But I guess, it's... You can look at it it's not great for the Bundesliga. There's not that much competition. But as a Bayern fan, and as Bayern Munich is probably thinking this too, what are they going to do? Lose? Do you expect them to lose?
It's not their problem.
Competitive, So, and then when they go and buy the best players from Leipzig or Dortmund or whoever it may be, it's really up to those teams to not sell to them. You have that in in the Premier League, like you rarely have someone from Chelsea going to City or Manchester City selling someone to United. Like that rarely happens. But in the Bundesliga, it kind of happens pretty often. I mean, Hummel's coming from Bayern, Götze, a ton of players. So, but I'm
We need
happy
more
with
Marco
Bayern winning.
Reus's in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, the loyalist man in football.
I know. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, like, great for Bayern. I think just as, like, a neutral fan of the Bundesliga, that's part of the reason I don't really watch it that much, because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch Bayern dominate everyone every week. That's why, honestly, I would rather watch, like, Leipzig, Leverkusen than I would Bayern versus Dortmund. Just because I feel like there's more chance in the game, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think one of the things that I think about when I watch the Bundesliga is I honestly think the Bundesliga has the most raw young talent out of the top 5 leagues, if I'm being honest. I think there's a ton of players in the Premier League that really got their big break in the Bundesliga. So when I watch these players play in the Bundesliga 5 years from now, they'll probably be stars in the Premier League. I mean, if you think of top players in the Prem, Kevin De Bruyne, Heung-min Son, Granit Xhaka, Leroy Sané, Bernd Leno, Gundogan. I mean, there's Aubameyang. I mean, they all played in the Bundesliga first, and that's where they developed. And then, obviously, the Premier League has the money. They have, the best teams. But it's so fun to watch, the Bundesliga develop these players at a very young age. So that's, I think, one of the big joys I have when watching those teams.
Yeah, I feel like, yes, the Bundesliga has brought a lot of talent to the Premier League, though there are a lot of busts as well. You can see Timo Werner has not played out as we hoped. I feel like, I'm not sure, I saw a stat a while ago that the steepest drop-off in terms of goals and assists between players that come from the Bundesliga, La Liga, all these other leagues to the Premier League comes from the Bundesliga. They score a lot less goals when they come to the Premier League compared to players that are coming from La Liga, coming from Serie A. But I feel like it is a pretty big pipeline. Every year there's a lot of players that come, and that could be just due to just like the sheer amount of players that coming through. And just because there's a steep drop-off doesn't mean in a few years these players are going to be pretty good. You see that with like Kevin De Bruyne. He comes, and then a few years later he's one of the better players in the Prem. So I don't know. It's still kind of boring to watch a lot of these teams when they have nothing to play for. And I feel like it's boring for Bayern if they don't win. Like, were you excited about the rest of the season once you were out of the Champions League and once you were out of the Pokal? I feel like similar to PSG, like what is there? It's not like the grand, it's not an achievement to do that.
Yeah, well, I think it is still an achievement, but Bayern definitely did not have the year that they wanted this year, and I think there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes now with Lewandowski possibly going to Barcelona. I know there are meetings with his agent, I think tonight, and Barcelona's discussing a $30 million to $35 million move, and I think Lewandowski is willing to take a pay cut as well. But we could see some changes in this Bayern team. Serge Gnabry, whether his contract's going to be extended or not, is Bayern going to fully commit to the back three like Nagelsmann wants? Or, are they going to go back to the standard four in the back that Bayern Munich has really always played? I think that was a big topic this year, was the flip-flop back and forth between games. And just player personnel. A lot of the since they won the Champions League in 2020, a lot of the recent transfers haven't panned out. I know one of the biggest transfers they're looking at to sign right away is Mazraoui from Ajax. He'll fit in right in that right wing back position, and if they can land that, maybe they will play the three in the back and have Davies and Mazraoui as those wing backs. But definitely not the year that Bayern had hoped for. They still won the league, which is an accomplishment, but 5-1 loss in the Pokal, and then obviously losing out to Villarreal in the Champions League is obviously disappointing. But
Yeah.
every year they're battling for the Champions League. I think it's been, I don't know how many times they made it to the semis, but it's been a lot recently, and unfortunately we weren't able to make it this year. But Champions League is always the goal.
Max, I'm thinking about your point about the Bundesliga having so many young talents. And not that I disagree that there's not young talent there, but I think, like, compared to the Premier League, there's not as much young talent. I think there's more kind of under the radar hidden players. But you compare it to all the young talent in the Premier League, I don't think it really compares. I think I can think of, Gio Reyna, Jude Bellingham, Florian Wirtz, all in the Bundesliga, but then we can think about all these players in the Premier League that are just unbelievable for their age. Phil Foden, Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, all these players are just so good, and I think the vast amount of quality in the Premier League, I think just I don't think the Bundesliga can really compare, if I'm being honest.
Well, Kai came from the Bundesliga.
I know, yeah, so Kai maybe is not the best example, but I'm just saying, in general, I think there's so much more young talent in the Premier League, or so much, better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just thinking about that because I normally do think the Bundesliga has all these good young players, and a lot of them do come to the Premier League. We can think about Timo, Kai, and Pulisic all on Chelsea, coming over pretty young. So obviously that talent did all come from there, but then we have Mason Mount, Phil Foden, and so many more players from the Premier League, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of players that might not pan out in the Premier League right away. Maybe someone like Gnabry from Arsenal that went to the Bundesliga and then really thrived, or someone like Jadon Sancho, who was on Manchester City's academy, right? And then he goes to Dortmund, he plays incredibly well, and now is on United. So I definitely think Bundesliga has really created kind of a pipeline almost for Americans too. You see a lot of Americans now playing in the Bundesliga, and for us, that's super exciting to watch, right? So I definitely think because the Bundesliga overall, talent-wise, is probably less than the Premier League, and I think we can all agree on that. It gives a lot more people a chance to play, I think is maybe a better way of saying it. You see a lot more.
No, I agree with that, definitely.
Talent.
Right. No, I mean, I fully agree that is what makes the Bundesliga exciting. There might not be the competition for the title, really, but there still is a lot of other exciting, young, talented players there that are still exciting to watch. And then this is a separate note, kind of, but I don't know if you all saw that Araujo just signed a new contract with Barcelona with a $1 billion release clause, which makes him the fourth Barca player to have a $1 billion release clause. I think the other ones, I think Pedri, Ferran Torres, and maybe what's that? Ferran Torres, Pedri,
Fati, maybe?
Yeah, and Ansu Fati, yeah.
Ansu Fati.
All have a $1 billion release clause, which is ridiculous. And I think that has to do something. There's some reasoning that they're so high in Spain because they're obviously just unrealistic. But regardless, it's still kind of funny to see. That's another thing. There's a lot of young players at Spain, but also a lot of young players specifically on Madrid and FC Barcelona that just play every game and are obviously very, very talented. So.
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun in my eyes. I think it's fun to see all these young players out there. So,
Tommy, you've been quiet.
I don't really got much to say. I don't know. $1 billion. Like, what's up with the release clauses? Because, like, even if they have a release clause, they can still be bought, right? So why
it's
have
just
it
a
at all?
safety net, basically. A lot of times it's the players want to have a release clause in there, so that, well, it doesn't really make sense with a $1 billion release clause, but a lot of times players want a release clause so that they can't be stuck. You know, if they really don't get along with the team, and then another team kind of hears about that and they're willing to pay their release clause, then the player basically has an out instead of having to wait the length of their contract. The $1 billion, I don't really understand. It might be because, we should just look this up as what we should do, but it might be something like these contracts have to have a release clause or something so that it's max amount, basically, so there is not a release clause. I don't know exactly what it is, but speaking of Spain, I think one thing that we can talk about is Tony Rudiger seemingly has made an agreement with Real Madrid. He's announced officially that he's leaving Chelsea, and is, I think probably a couple days till we hear the "here we go" that he is on his way to Madrid. I think that's just a huge loss for Chelsea. I think obviously that is due to the sanctions and them not being able to re-sign him, but that being said, they have had years to put him on a new contract and to extend him. So I think that's really an error by Chelsea for letting his contract get down this low. I think it's just bad player management and financial management, obviously, or also because he's a huge asset just walking out the door for free. So
I think it's tough, right? Because Rudiger is one of the best center backs in the world, but from Chelsea's perspective, they're also losing Christensen and Azpilicueta as well, so those are 3 starters on their team.
I think Azpi might stay. That one's still up in the air. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully he stays, but Rudiger out the door is really unfortunate, and from the Madrid side of things, that just adds immediately so much depth to their team. And it'll be interesting to see how they end up lining up. My guess is that he starts at center back with Militao, and they slide Alaba out left instead of Mendy. I think Alaba just gives them much more going forward than Mendy does. But it could also just be a tactical thing, and they can switch around different games, have Rudiger play right next to Alaba and still start Mendy, and maybe have Militao be a backup just for depth. But yeah, that's a big pickup for Madrid if they can land him.
Yeah, I even think he fits into the Madrid squad as well as he would with like a 3 in the back system. But it doesn't matter because Madrid is just picking up a player that's going to be, he's in his prime, one of the best defenders in the world, and getting him for, yes, they're going to probably pay him a decent amount, but getting him for free really reduces that cost over his contract period. I think what comes to mind is how long the sale of Chelsea has taken, because when it was announced that Abramovich was going to sell it and the sanctions were applied, it seemed like crazy, but there seemed to be an out, which would be this club would be quickly sold, and then we could get back to trying to sign these players and get back to just like fixing our squad. It didn't seem like a crisis when the UK government basically said we'll facilitate the sale. The fact that, I don't know, has it been like 2 months at this point?
I think it was first put up for sale in sometime March, and then the sanctions were also placed shortly thereafter.
Right, it's been a while. So I feel like I assumed at this point we would be able to try to retain Rudiger, to retain Christensen. So that's kind of a bummer. But it's also just a culmination of Chelsea's transfer policy in the last like 5 to 10 years of not retaining players, not really giving chances to players within their youth system. And you see that with Guehi's gone, Tomori's gone, the backups that would be in the squad if Rudiger left are no longer there, and the players that we're just like so purchase happy, we'd rather buy the next hot thing rather than keep a core group of players, and that's a detriment to the team, and that's the main reason why it's like similar to Manchester United of why we can't compete with Liverpool and Man City, because they had periods of 3 to 4 years under Klopp and under Pep where they slowly built a team and built a core of players, and then with that core kind of just like replacing parts as they go along. And we don't have that incubation period because we're just so short-sighted, and we're never going to be able to compete with those teams unless they crash or we change our strategy.
I think we're going to be forced to change our strategy. I think that trigger happiness was because of Abramovich. I think because he did have money to throw at the club basically endlessly, and then also his management style where he will fire a coach after half a bad season. So I think that will have to change, and Chelsea will have to, or depending on the new owner, but it's more likely that they will adopt a new strategy with a little bit of a longer, like you said, incubation period and stuff like that, and probably give the managers a little bit more leeway, which I'm kind of excited to see. I do think that is one of the reasons, like you said, Tom, why Pep and Klopp are able to have these phenomenal teams, is because they were given a little bit more of a chance. And so I really do hope that whoever the new owner is gives Tuchel that time, and also the funds to build his team and do with the club what he wants. Specifically to Rudiger, I am disappointed to see him walk out the door, but I'm also kind of coming to terms with it, at least, and not being too frustrated, because if you think about it, Rudiger's time at Chelsea hasn't been exceptional. It's really been this last season and a half under Tuchel where he's, basically has been reborn as a player and become one of these top defenders in the world. So, looking back 3 years, Rudiger was not all that. And so, although he's great now, I guess I'm trying to rationalize their sale, but needless to say, they will need a big replacement. I don't think Chalobah or Malang Sarr can fill those shoes, so they will likely have to buy, I think, 2 more high-profile defenders. I think Tuchel said earlier today or this week that they're basically just going to need to do surgery to the back line because 2 core players are leaving, and maybe a third in Azpilicueta. So it'll definitely be a ambitious summer and an expensive summer for Chelsea. So
we're going to start up those Coon Day rumors.
Yeah, well, I think they'll sign Coon Day. I don't see why they wouldn't, because from what I've seen, really, that's the only player that I've heard Tuchel kind of request or seemingly request. That's kind of the player he wants, similar to Lampard with Chilwell. So I do think that to make a manager happy, you kind of have to give them at least one player that they really want. So I think they would sign Coon Day. I think Coon Day and Tuchel were both very upset when the deal didn't happen over the summer last year. And Coon Day is a fast defender. He could play one of those outside center back roles. So I do think he could fit in there well, and I do think he will likely be signed. I'm more curious to see who that additional signing will be, since it does seem like they're already talking about signing a second.
Yeah, I agree. I think Koundé is necessary if we're going to be able to play the same style that we are playing under Tuchel. Because a lot of times Rudiger is the guy that will actually take the initiative when we're playing pretty slowly and kind of bring an extra player into the attack. Of the 4 players, the center backs and Jorginho that just stay back, Rudiger is the guy that comes forward and really just it's like a break, almost like in pool, where you just kind of create some chaos and stuff happens. And other than that, it just kind of stagnates. So Koundé is probably going to fill that role. It depends who's going to be on the the left
He's
side.
pretty good at like ball progression too, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he has like a couple goals or something for Sevilla.
Yeah.
He's got the aggressiveness of
Yeah, he does.
for
That's
sure,
what I
too.
was thinking of. He gets so many red cards or cards in general. But I think there's something to be said for that also. I think we see Mount trying to be the bad boy on the field. He doesn't really have the same level of strength that Rudiger does, so I don't think it really carries over the same. But there's something to be said about having an aggressive defender for sure. So.
Yeah, he's in the 81st percentile for progressive passes and
That's good.
91st for progressive carries. So he's that guy for
That's
Sevilla.
Tuchel's game plan.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think kind of in tandem with that, it will be interesting to see the sale of Chelsea. I think there was a meeting, I believe today or tomorrow, which apparently is kind of the final meeting regarding the sale. I do think the bank is going to finalize the decision very shortly, which will be interesting to see and will give us a chance to kind of get on with things as a team. So I'm definitely excited for that to happen. Will be interesting to see kind of who comes out and who gets picked. But hopefully they have the club at heart and not the dollar bills. Although maybe that's naive. We'll see.
Yeah. At this point, I don't even follow all the rumors because I feel like it's been like they've been narrowing it down, and then also while they narrow it down, I hear about more and more buyers that are coming, potentially buying the club every week. So I have no idea who's gonna actually buy the club, but I hope it's gonna be an owner that actually will take the time to rebuild the club to get to the Liverpool, Man City level. That's all I hope.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Rational owners.
Yeah. But I'm hopeful. I'm excited either way just to get it over with so we can actually kind of start to look forward and not be stuck like this.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely good either way. That being said, let's jump into Match of the Week. We are going to go with, well, actually, let's recap the last week's Match of the Week, which was Arsenal Man United. Ding, ding, ding for me. Called the score correct.
Yeehaw.
3-1 Arsenal. So that, I don't have the scores in front of me, but that does tie Max and my score. So I'm no longer fully in the hot seat. Now I'm sharing it with Max. Max, are you getting a little nervous over there?
I'm sweating right now. Am I going to be kicked off?
Yeah, well, you know,
We gotta catch
all of
Tommy.
eyes have been on me the whole time, but you know, I'm making a late jump. So I'm feeling very confident. I'm feeling that title position is well within reach. So that being said, this coming Match of the Week will be Leipzig versus Rangers in the Europa League. So this game's actually tomorrow. So by the time you all are hearing this, the results will be out. But you'll be able to hear our commentary, see how close we can get. So
That'd be kind of
Max, seeing that you are in the hot seat, I'll keep you there, and you're up first.
I'm going to go with the Bundesliga boys. Let's go. I feel like there have been some high-scoring Europa League games, so I'm going to say...
Yeah. You know, I don't think I've ever really watched Rangers, but I know they have Kamara, the guy on Scotland's national team. I've liked what I saw from him from over the Euros. That's the last time I watched him.
Aaron Ramsey.
Leipzig's probably gonna... Oh, shit. Fair enough. Yeah, I'll probably say 2-1 Leipzig because they just got a lot of players, you know? They got a lot of players, you know? They probably have more players than Rangers, if I had to guess.
Strictly body count.
Strictly body count, yeah. And David Cuckoo. I'll go 2-1.
No, this is a tough one. I think I've watched more Europa League than both of you have.
Nice flex, bro.
No, well, I don't know. We normally talk about the games and you guys don't watch them, but
Yeah.
I think Rangers are good. I think they've put on a pretty good show so far. I forget who they played last round, and they did have a little bit more trouble than previous opposition in the Europa League. And Leipzig are very kind of high scoring these days. I think I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw, though. I think this one's going to be decided in the second leg. I think we're going to see some action, and I'm going for the win here, so I'm not going for the equal point if we all guess Leipzig. So that's
Fair.
a strategic move in there as well. So I'm going for a draw, 2-2.
All right.
We'll see. But I think that wraps it up for this week's episode. Thank you to everyone who watched and listened. Be sure to check out our new segment that we have going on our YouTube, where we answer some quick questions and shorter form videos, somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. And those will be coming out every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So be sure to check those out. And thank you all for watching. See you next week.
Peace.